Welcome to Sustainability Now, an exploration of technologies and paradigms to shape a world that works. Designed for socially conscious entrepreneurs and individuals interested in responsible stewardship of the planet. Sustainability Now covers food, energy, housing, water, waste, health, economics, and consciousness. Welcome to your community, Sustainability Now, with your host, Mira Rubin.
Welcome, everybody, to Sustainability Now, technologies and paradigms to shape a world that works. I'm your host, Mira Rubin, and I am excited to share with you Brian Hicks today. Brian is founder of GroundSteam, and he owns a Tim Hortons restaurant in Devon, Alberta, Canada. And just for your reference, Tim Hortons serves 8 out of 10 cups of all coffee that's served in Canada. And they produce a prodigious amount of used coffee grounds that usually end up in landfill. So in 2012, Brian started a program to change that, not only for his restaurant, but for other restaurants as well. And by the end of December in 2017, he had diverted over 500,000 pounds of coffee grounds from landfill, just from his restaurant. And that was the birth of GroundSteam. And GroundSteam is now providing service to many restaurants in the Edmonton area and has been picking up steam ever since. So Brian's restaurant was the first recipient of the Devon Environmental Sustainability Award and was also honored to be a finalist for the Province of Alberta Emerald Award. Brian, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here with us.
Well, thank you very much, Mira. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
I love your vision. I love that you saw this issue. I mean, 500,000 pounds of coffee grounds in 5 years, that's insane. And that's just one restaurant. So you saw a real problem or challenge.
Exactly. I think the opportunity existed, and I think the idea that we can use what you would consider waste as a raw material for something else was sort of the reason for me to think, how can I make a difference with this volume of coffee grounds alone?
Well, and so what you're talking about as waste being a resource, that's the foundation of circular economy. And that's really where we need to go to take the world to where we need to be in a sustainable way, right?
That's right. And I'm certainly having a lot of fun doing it. And the more people that I speak to about it, which is obviously the reason why I'm speaking with you today, is that my ideas are at the beginning of something, and it may fit nicely into something with one of your viewers that happens across this podcast. So
exactly. Well, so many of the people that watch and listen to our podcast are what we call visionary entrepreneurs. And that's you in a nutshell. And I just would love to have you talk a little bit about how this whole thing evolved and what was the light bulb that made you say, hey, I got to do something about this.
Sure. Well, obviously the idea came to me when I realized that I've got an awful lot of wet waste that is being picked up every week. My garbage bin container was being picked up 3 times a week, and it was awfully heavy with that wet waste. So I wondered if there was an opportunity to separate at source my coffee grounds from my other organic material, because at that point, there was no true organics program for commercial businesses in the small town. So I was speaking with a local farmer, and I said to him, we've got some soil that surrounding the town that actually could use some enhancement. What do you think of the idea of using my coffee grounds as a soil enhancement? And so he had a truck, and we found some bins, and he decided to try that on his own garden. And he found that it was quite amenable to helping his organic vegetables and whatnot grow. I mean, it's not the perfect recipe, as you can probably imagine. There's certainly other soil enhancement additives that would go along with the coffee grounds to make a perfect perfect recipe. But it allowed that coffee grounds to have another purpose other than landfill. And as you know, the off-gassing that happens in most landfills with organic material. I wanted to make a difference in my restaurant to see if we could do something about it. And so for a few years, he was collecting the coffee grounds. Every time he came in for a coffee, basically, I'd give him a Tim card, which is actually a loyalty program card that we have at our restaurant. So that was his fee for service, and his benefit is that he got some really nice produce out of his garden. And then as the idea developed, we realized that there's a bigger opportunity to collect coffee grounds from other locations. And currently in GroundSteam's current state, we have 10 restaurants on board with the pickup services. And we charge a fee for the service to pick them up. And the use of the coffee grounds have changed in the last 3 or 4 months. So we're pretty excited about that. But it was initially set up to divert wet waste and allow, because of, as I said, it was separated at source, allowed it to be potentially become a raw material for something else, a new product.
Let me interrupt for a second, because there are a couple things about this that I just want to point out. One is there was an economic incentive, right?
Yes.
So there's an environmental incentive, but there's also a big economic incentive.
Exactly. So in our province of Alberta, the waste haulers, they charge what is called a tipping fee. So every time their truck tips a bin into their vehicle, we are charged a fee. Because I was able to reduce my waste hauling, the volume of waste, to about a third of what it was also extremely lightweight as well because of that wet waste being diverted. So I was able to reduce my tipping fees by, now I'm getting picked up once a week. And the volume that they're picking up is basically light material that we can't recycle. And so as a result, they reduce my fees. So there's a savings there. There's also a fuel surcharge that's been reduced. So all around, it was a good thing. And they personally didn't care too much. The large waste haulers get paid by volume, and they're charged by weight at the other end. So they were able to pick up many more locations because of my wet waste being diverted. So it was really actually better for them because they were able to make a little bit more money on the same run that they would normally be having to do a second or third run at. So that's where the cost savings were, but also the process that I have in restaurant, which in essence, like anything, is habit forming. If you imagine an employee at any restaurant dumping heavy wet coffee grounds into a plastic garbage bag, often they would have to be double bagged. And when they are about a quarter full, that was about the maximum weight that a staff person could lift, into then chucking it into the bin, which is not in itself a challenge, especially when it's freezing cold, or you've got this trying to imagine a balloon filled with water and trying to slug it over your shoulder to get it out there. So there was a safety issue for my staff as well. So when they learned that instead of dumping it into the garbage bin, they could dump it into a wheeled cart, they were just so much happier, and they could wheel that full cart out the back door and wheel in a fresh cart, and it made their lives a lot easier, and they were a lot happier that they didn't have to go outside when it was freezing cold and deal with that.
And so when you started, you're putting all this waste into the cart, and then the farmer would come and pick up the cart, or the farmer would come and pick it up?
That's right.
Okay.
The link to the Emerald Award video, which I sent to you, it kind of shows how our carts got picked up and got started, and he would come to town for a load of fresh water for himself, and then around the fresh water bin he would tuck in a few of these carts and take them up to his farm, sort of thing.
So just for everybody listening, you will be able to find this video and other links that we reference on our website at sustainabilitynow.global. So we'll make sure that we have a link to that video for everybody to watch.
Yes, and so now the process is a little more professional looking. I have a cube van and a ramp, and the carts go up into the cube van for delivery to our new drop point, and we are able to carry 66 bins.
Wow.
In the cart in the cube van now. So
what kind of weight are each of those bins holding?
They're about between 40 and 50 pounds each.
Okay.
Sometimes they're heavier, depending. We have a system where they dump the coffee grounds and the filter, which is compostable as well, into it's similar to a colander where you would drain vegetables and fruit,
mm-hmm.
and that gets drained. The water drains off into the bucket below it, and then the somewhat drier coffee grounds then get put into this green bin to be wheeled outside. So
what happens to the water?
The water is, ideally, that would be a nice little soil or watering opportunity, but we've only got so many plants around our restaurant. So we do in the summer, we do water our plants with that sort of coffee water. But for the most part, it gets put through our grease trap and proper process for disposal there. So,
okay.
But the added weight that's taken, the weight that's taken out of that by the use of the drain buckets, it certainly makes it easier for us hauling it away, because why haul away water when it's really not something that's going to benefit in the long run. So it just makes for managing those bins a lot easier, and they're on wheels, so it does make it a somewhat easier.
So you set up the system in your restaurant.
That's right.
In other words, you prototyped it there.
Correct.
And then what prompted you to go out and start enrolling other restaurateurs in this?
Well, I felt that we do a lot of things at the restaurant which by their very nature are consumables, and we have which we're certainly trying to make our paper products more environmentally friendly. But
I want to interrupt you for a second, because
sure.
I want to make a distinction here. When you say we, you're talking about you at your restaurant. You're not talking about Tim Hortons overall. So you're a bit of a firebrand from what you're kind of like paving the way for a transformation, and you're the beginning rebel that's starting to make this happen, right?
I suppose leading by example is certainly what I like to do, and there are certain areas where we have flexibility to manage our own waste and whatnot. So I felt that it's who I am as a person and always has been. So why not make it part of my daily routine at the restaurant? So I've got a lot of recycling programs in place for my plastic and my cardboard and my end of life Tim card, the loyalty program cards as well. And
I'd like you to talk a little bit more about some of those programs too, because
sure.
You are such a wonderful example of what someone who's forward thinking can do in a conventional business environment to be more conscious and evidence greater stewardship. And I'd love you to share that.
Well, thank you for that. We certainly have an opportunity to be more responsible. I think as a franchise model, there is opportunities for improvements everywhere, and some franchisees embrace the idea, and others don't necessarily look at it that way. In my case, I wanted to make a difference in my community, in my restaurant, the lead by example opportunities that we could all embrace. And really, once the habit was formed, it was really an easy opportunity for me to take to other restaurants and demonstrate how easy and straightforward it is to make a difference. And because a large volume of coffee is sold in our restaurants every day in Canada, the coffee waste, the spent coffee grounds are the biggest opportunity, in my opinion. And so when I took the idea of recycling the coffee grounds to local restaurant owners in the area, I put a green bin in the restaurant while we were having a conversation about it, and explained to their staff what this was for. Before the conversation was even over, the staff came out and said, why haven't we been doing this for years? This just makes total sense. So it wasn't me selling the idea to the restaurant owner. It was the restaurant owner's staff saying, this is the right thing to do. It's easy to do. We don't have to lift these soggy, wet bags out. So the benefits were pretty darn obvious right away. And if the opportunity exists elsewhere in the world, if somebody in the US wants to do something like this, let's just do it. It's not something that I feel that I'm not the person who started this. It's not a franchise opportunity. It's just do it, and whatever makes sense to decentralize this opportunity, do it.
I'm curious, you said that you took the green bin to the restaurant, and the people that worked there all got on board, seeing what a wonderful thing it was all the way around, probably for their health as well. And I'm wondering if you've approached any restaurants that have said no.
The only restaurants that were a bit hesitant, I think, didn't really take the time to look at what the cost savings truly could be, or if it wasn't really any extra expense other than just a habit that needed to be formed. And I think that's really with any program, is that if you can make it a habit, then it's a no-brainer. And I think that's where most of the businesses are concerned about, making money, but not a lot of people necessarily think about how to save money. And so these efficiencies are actually saving them money. And when you look at the cost of doing business, when you are, especially in the franchise model, you have certain expenses that you have no choice but to purchase and don't necessarily have control over. The operational side of things is where you can actually save money. The cost savings at the other end, to me, it just makes sense. And from a staff safety point of view, that was important to me as well, because it isn't easy to do the garbages when you're busy with guests in the restaurant as well. So, and they tend to do it faster, and that's an opportunity for them to spend more time in front of the guest when they can actually do the garbages that much quicker, sort of thing. So.
What about some of the other programs that you have, just quickly?
Sure. Well, I have some of the product comes in a tray. It's recyclable in some areas, but in Devon particularly, it's not. So in the springtime, I offer the muffin trays to the local residents so they can start seedlings for the community garden. And in them, I've got the cardboard is a special program that most locations have. The plastic is separated into various forms. And in Alberta, we have returnable bottles. Anything that's ready to drink is returned for a fee to a bottle depot. Now, not every province has that opportunity, or I'm not sure which states have that as well, but I try and separate everything at the restaurant so that it's easier to reuse. My Tim Card loyalty program is similar to what you would know as an Air Miles or one of those. It's a reloadable card that has various marketing themes on it, and
kind of like Starbucks, not to mention a competitor, but
exactly.
Yes.
No, I mean it is what it is, but everybody's moving to an online loyalty program now, so it's kind of losing favor, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for the plastic wastes. So my understanding is that it's not recyclable because of that magnetic stripe on the back, that it's not easy to recycle these things. So I made a project. Initially, I purchased a pick punch. It's a punch to make guitar picks, and the thickness of the plastic card is perfect for most guitarists to use for having fun, playing guitar. So what I did was I made a bunch of guitar picks and put them on the counter and made a little note to say that, make a donation to our Tim Hortons Children's Foundation and take your pick. And so that's how we made a little bit of recycling the guitar, the Tim cards. The other one was a really fun idea. I had a vision for a mosaic, and I commissioned a local artist in Devon to come. And I explained my vision. She made a 2-foot by 4-foot model to give me an idea of what she could do with it. And then she made a 4-foot by 8-foot one, and it's a mosaic of the bridge that crosses over the North Saskatchewan River here in Devon. And so it's a pretty obvious landmark if you've been to Devon. And so she created this beautiful mosaic out of Tim cards, and
it really is beautiful. We're going to have a picture of that on the website as well. It's
sure, and it looks like a ceramic, broken glass ceramic type of a mosaic. So, and it's finished with the UV protection and framed, and it's now mounted on my drive-through. We have a drive-through ordering opportunity at most of the Tim Hortons restaurants, and so it's on display there to show people just something that we've done to repurpose. So.
Well, you know what? It occurs to me that all these things that you're doing, especially like with the muffin tins in the community, and it's building relationship with your community in a big way, and connecting all these restaurants that could potentially be competitors, or you're creating community from a whole different model. And
that's right.
Yeah, I'd love you to talk about like the underlying principles there.
Sure. Well, it certainly, as I'd mentioned before, in a franchise model, there's certainly the cost of doing business, and there's also opportunities that exist that one might not necessarily think about. And I just felt that this was one way collecting the spent coffee grounds was one way to make a bit of a difference. And again, you mentioned, Mara, that it doesn't matter what location, what restaurant. If you have coffee grounds, the opportunity can develop to the point where you could drop your coffee grounds off somewhere, just like you would to a landfill or a waste depot, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to make a difference in my community because it's important to me to show that, yes, we're a large consumer of stuff, and yes, we have large volumes of guests every day, but I'm conscious about what we do in our environmental footprint within the town. So people really like the idea of what I'm doing in Devon, and as a result, that naturally brings more business my way. It's one of those things where I don't think of it as a cost. I think of it as a marketing opportunity, and that's not the end game for me. It just happens to be embraced by a lot of the residents in Devon. So when you ask somebody in Devon what they think of the Devon Tim Hortons, and automatically the negative Nellies, if you will, are complaining about the franchisees and the franchises that take advantage and whatnot. So this one person can make a difference, and I think that it's important that we all try and make a difference because sustainability now is a perfect example of how awareness can be brought to a greater community, and ideas can be shared and strengthened and evolved. And
thank you for that.
That's really how GroundSteam has evolved as well, just by kind of connecting with people that you never thought you might necessarily come across. And I'll give
Speaking
you,
of which,
yes.
I would love to hear you share with us more about what's happening now with the coffee grounds and the evolution of it.
Exactly where I was headed. Yes. So one of the things that we realized when we were collecting the coffee grounds is that, you know, our future use for the coffee grounds was a soil enhancement and compost material. But we weren't far enough along in our development to really feel that we were making a difference other than collecting it and moving it out of the typical waste stream. So I happened across a company that won an award for a new business startup, and they have a really neat process for vermicompost, and their compost that is made from the worm castings is pretty impressive as far as the nutrients required for produce and fruit and vegetable sort of thing. So we offered to deliver our coffee grounds to them to use as part of the recipe for feeding their worms. And it's been a tremendous opportunity because we have an immediate positive impact of taking those coffee grounds out of the waste stream and providing a new product as a result. So coffee grounds in and of themselves, what we thought was the basis for the compost, it's actually better to be mixed with their own proprietary recipe to feed their worms. So they have one large facility. They are opening a second facility local nearby, and hopefully by the end of 2021 they'll have a third facility open. Now, that's an awful lot of coffee grounds that is required to set these composting vermicompost facilities up. So it's a perfect fit. The folks that are behind the worm casting company are wonderful, passionate individuals that really they get it, and we hit it off immediately, and so the relationship was born. And I really believe that folks like yourself and your group at Sustainability Now, as well as myself and these folks from Annalita, which, if you don't mind providing a link to your team as well.
You know what? First of all, why don't you just take a minute and give us the GroundSteam link?
Sure. It's groundsteam.ca, groundsteam.ca.
Okay, and how about the one for Annalita?
Annalita is, just give me a second, I'll have to get that one back.
To spell it right. Well, we are gonna put it on the website, so it'll be available for everybody, and that'll be at sustainabilitynow.global.
That's right. Okay, so Annalita is ANNELIDA.ca.
Perfect. Thank you.
And as I said, they're wonderful people, and I'm not sure that other than information, I'm not sure that you could get their product down south in the U.S. at this point yet. But
well, I think it's a wonderful business opportunity, probably for people maybe in the States that want to collaborate. Who knows?
Absolutely, and they are happy to share their information, their technology. There may be, the recipe may be proprietary, I'm not sure, but they are visionaries for sure, and they come to work excited every day, just like I do when I connect with people, like-minded individuals with an idea. Show them all your cards and say, how can you help make this product better, and how can I help, my product can help your product. So that's how we're going to change the world, in my case, one restaurant at a time, I suppose. So
I love it. And I did ask you a little bit ago about your vision. Do you envision, for instance, having the whole Tim Hortons chain enrolled in this, or all restaurants enrolled in this kind of program? What's your big vision?
I think that the large waste haulers are, some of them anyway, are not really doing what they should be responsibly in terms of waste diversion, and separating at source is our responsibility. My vision is that I'd love to see every restaurant participate in this type of a program, and it's going to take small opportunity or opportunists like myself to make that difference. And my vision is, what can we make from coffee grounds that we never thought about before? And one of your
Perfect segue. Perfect segue, because that's where I was going to go next. So you have some ideas around that too.
Okay, no problem. Sure. Well, one of your regular viewers has, my understanding, has created a polymer. What is it called?
So he's actually not just one of our regular viewers, but a good friend now. Sean Steed, Change Climate. He has developed a bioepoxy.
Bioepoxy, right?
That is completely non-toxic, and
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good opportunity as well. I showed you before, and I will have it during the live portion, as a coffee cup that's made entirely from 100% spent coffee grounds, and it's made in Germany, and there's a company in Berlin that has a small run of these various types of drinking vessels, cappuccino and espresso and a latte, and it's pressed with some cell walls, I believe, of plants in order to bind it, and it may be similar to this bioepoxy that one of your contacts has spoken about. And it's a product that can be washed, I think, 400 times in the dishwasher before it shows any sort of signs of breaking down. So it's a really neat idea, and my understanding as well that they're taking chaff from the roasting of the coffee beans and actually starting to make auto parts. And hopefully those auto parts are for electric vehicles, but that's another conversation as well.
Right.
But there's just so many opportunities when we can consider what is considered waste nowadays. And if we look at waste not as waste but as a raw material for something else, that's a good thing. The organic waste from restaurants as well. The Annalita worm facility is looking at doing some what bokashi is the process, and it's a process that was developed in Japan, and not so much for or breakdown of organics, but actually fermentation. So if there's a link that we can provide for that as well, that would make use of the organic materials in restaurant and the volumes that are required, even to the point where I believe their facilities eventually can handle of the small towns' organic wastes that turn that into vermicompost as well, because it partially breaks down the organic materials and make it more palatable for the worms, I guess. And if you think about it, if I'm providing them with a percentage of coffee in their recipe, hopefully there's some decaf in there so that the worms don't get all hopped up on caffeine and stuff.
I'm picturing these dancing worms.
That's right. They're a little more active when they're hopped up on caffeine.
I would imagine. Well, so Brian, if we're looking at your journey, I'm wondering if you have any resources that you would recommend to others that have been an inspiration to you, or that have guided you in your entrepreneurship and stewardship journey?
Well, that's a pretty tough question, because I admire people from various industries that are doing something that's different. And the town of Devon, where I live, has really been an inspiration as far as small towns go, with ideas that generate change. And I've participated in a few sessions where I'm contributing as a business owner ideas that might allow small town like Devon to become net zero. We did a project where we considered what would it take for Devon to become net zero by the year 2050, and that exercise made me aware, but most of us in the room aware, that we don't really have enough knowledge to be giving direction to a small town. But the idea of them saying, hey, what can we do? Generated this idea that we start something similar to your organization, Sustainability Now, when we have a series of monthly talks, and the talks that take part are obviously online now.
Are those
and
talks,
they're
are
all,
those, I'm sorry to
sorry?
interrupt, but are those talks open to
Yes,
people?
yeah. We
Wanna
call it
share a
Walk the Talks. Walk the Talks was born from that session about a net zero community, to allow us to make an informed decision what we can do locally, even in our own home or in our community or in our province to affect change. And Walk the Talks was born by myself and another individual in Devon, and now we have 5 or 6 people on the what we consider the board, and we organize these free monthly sustainability talks in quite a wide range of topics.
Would you
So
like
I
to
can
share a link for that, Brian?
Sure. We have a Facebook presence currently, and if you search the term Walk the Talks with an S, we are not just talking it, but we're actually walking it. So Walk the Talks, and it's Devon, Alberta. So I can provide the link as well, but that's where you'll find some interesting speakers that we've had. Some of them we recorded on Facebook Live, and others didn't want to be, and that's fine. But my connection to Sustainability Now was Carrie McDonald, your recent presenter in the past couple of weeks, and she and I have known each other for a couple of years, and that's how I found out about you. And when I listened into her presentation to get an update on what she's been up to, it was refreshing, and to see the expanded community of like-minded individuals just makes me happy. So it was really nice to make a connection through a common connection of ours. So.
Well, Sustainability Now that's part of our vision, really, is to be connecting people in the sustainability arena across different silos, so that we create a greater synergy to be able to do things that we wouldn't have considered in our own little silo. So
That's
for
what
those
makes
of
the
you,
difference.
oh yeah, and
Absolutely.
for
I
everybody,
commend you for that.
I'm sorry.
I commend you and your group for that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I want to say that Kari McDonald, for those of you who are listening, if you haven't caught the interview with her, you definitely want to check it out. She's doing remarkable things with a technology that is called the Energy Junction. It evolved from something called the Green Powerhouse, and it is a powerhouse generating energy and soil remediation and algae and hydrogen fuel and just on and on.
What's interesting about that is that I am responsible for powering Carrie's enthusiasm because she drinks coffee nonstop.
See, and it's a full circle. So on that note, let me just ask you, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
You are an amazing interview person, so I think you've covered everything. Hopefully I've answered the questions without sounding like I'm going in circles.
No, not at all. I love what you're doing. I love your vision, and I think you're a tremendous inspiration to folks that are looking to make a difference. And you're an innovator.
Well, thank you for that. I consider myself, I don't have a degree in anything, but I consider myself somewhat of a logical engineer. So I guess that's going to be my title. But I would also suggest that anybody who's listening that wants to just have a chat offline or FaceTime or web call, Zoom call, reach out. The contact information is on the GroundSteam website, and I'd be happy to chat and share some ideas further in more detail, specifically to an area of interest of them. So.
Beautiful. So that's groundsteam.ca.
Correct.
And you can reach out to Brian there. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today, Brian. This was awesome. And thank you for your innovation and your vision and everything that you're doing. And I love the idea of transforming the restaurant industry to be
Well,
sustainable.
well, thank you, and you are the reason to keep the passion going as well because of your enthusiasm for what you're doing. So every day having a conversation with somebody like yourself is a happy day. So thank you for that as
Thank you
well.
so much. I also want to say thank you to all of you, our listeners. You're the ones that are making it happen. Spread the word. If you like what you see here, please support us on social media, follow us, like us, join our YouTube page. And we even have a Patreon account. So for the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help us out. And we would be so grateful. That's Patreon.com/sustainability now. And I want to say thank you to my co-founder and our producer, Scott Billy. And until next time, live your best life, love the world around you, and together we can save the world.
Thank you for listening to Sustainability Now. Visit sustainabilitynow.global to find resources related to today's program. While you're there, pledge your support by making a contribution to help us shape a world that works. And remember to subscribe, share, and follow us on social media.